I'm so gonna post this on YouTube. YouTube, how are you guys? Let's get the intro going.
This moment right now, this feels real. But is it?
Now you see, when your identity is defined by society, you cannot resist it. You don't have the knowledge, you don't have the wisdom, you don't have the resources to understand that something's being put over on you. You cannot but help believe the definition of you.
Chat. Oh. YouTube, how are you guys? I haven't posted in a while. It's been a few minutes. I'm live streaming every day on Twitch. Of course, my Twitch name has changed.
And
now it's basically official beats. Just the word official and then beats. And we're watching a controversial person, okay? We're watching someone who is, I would call it the boogeyman. He is a very interesting person. Now, I don't watch a lot of his videos, but I've recently seen this just pop up on my explore page. So I guess he's not in the shadow realms, if you want to call it like that. And I don't know who this person is. I already watched 8 minutes, 53 seconds. And the person's called Digital Social Hour Podcast by Sean Kelly. Congrats, bro. You got balls of steel putting him on your video. Also, congratulations to me because I am now putting this on YouTube. Now, like in 10 minutes, after we hit like 20 minutes on the video, right now it's at 8:53. I'm gonna still listen to the podcast, but I'm gonna jump on Fortnite and play some rounds. I'm basically watching this while I eat my sandwich, but we'll see.
They're going to develop themselves. They're going to engage in that recursive self-improvement. That's when AI.
By the way, he just talked about him. He called TSA. My bad, excuse me. He called TSA to basically remove the so-called blockage he had of traveling to, well, he had like some kind of like a block so he couldn't travel, or he was in the no-fly list. The fact that TSA couldn't confirm that he was on the no-fly list, but he kept on saying that he wasn't. So, all right, so 9 minutes right now. So let's watch.
AI improves itself without a human operator or somebody using it, and it will become vastly more intelligent, communicating with itself, and we're not aware fully of its capability. We can't even comprehend or understand it. It creates a novel language to communicate with itself, and it's at that point that we lose control over it. And because we don't understand the nature of it, maybe that's impossible, but maybe it isn't. We don't know, and that's the problem with another intelligence is it has that ability to conceal from human beings. That's what makes it so dangerous.
I mean, Elon posted yesterday that singularity already happened.
Right.
Crazy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of Twitter, we got to go through some of your recent tweets. Oh man, I love how unhinged you are on Twitter. It's the last platform you're on, so
that's right. Yes.
Well, we got to talk about the recent call out with Tim Pool. What sparked that, and has he responded to any of your comments yet?
I don't think he's responded, but it's really been one-sided. I wanted to get on Tim Pool's show many years ago. I tried to get on the show. My fans would go on his live chat and say, we want to see Nick Fuentes on the show. And for 5 years, he's been ducking me. I mean, since 2020 or 2021, I've been trying to get on the show. And I'm a pretty notable guy. I think certainly I'm more notable than many of the guests that are on the show. And he's called me out. His guests have called me out. So I think it's appropriate. I don't think I'm overly entitled to say he should invite me on the show as a notable guest, as someone that's been called out. And over the years, he's given many excuses. He said, well, your fans are brigading the live chat. You're not supposed to do that. I'm thinking, isn't that kind of what you want? Don't you want to generate hype and buzz? And his producers will say, who do you want to see on the show? My fans say, we want to see Nick. And they go, oh, well, too many people are saying your name. It's like, okay, I mean, so why ask? So that's what they said in the very beginning. Then we had a big beef over the Yay 24 debacle.
Have you guys seen the new drama, Trump and Elon Musk? Just saying, it's getting out of hand. All right, give me 1 second. I need to boot up Fortnite real quick. And Twitch, relax, y'all. Y'all need to chill. I am watching this because I believe there's some truth to be found in what he might say in this podcast. I first time hearing this, okay? First time watching this video, so do not glaze me like that, if anything, okay?
We went there.
Also, YouTube, chill.
Me, Milo, Ye, back during his presidential campaign or potential campaign, and Ye walked off in 10 minutes. Allegedly, Tim Pool was very insulted. He thought that was pre-planned. We coordinated that. It wasn't, for what it's worth. Apparently holds that against me. But he's had Milo on the show 5 times since that happened. So, I mean, that can't be the case. And anyway, so the latest episode, this is just a little of the history. I basically gave up. I said, you know what? He doesn't want to have me on the show. Whatever. I mean, I can imagine any number of real reasons. Maybe he doesn't want to lose his YouTube channel. Maybe he doesn't want to get into a certain topic like
Based.
Israel that might get him canceled. You know, we could use our imaginations why he doesn't want to have that conversation. But out of the blue, out of a clear blue sky the other night, he goes on this rant and says that I'm Israel first. He says, Nick Fuentes is Israel first. And, you know, I've been called a lot of things for as long as I've been doing this. I've been called a Nazi, anti-Semite, racist, fed, gay, you know, every kind of thing you can imagine, every slander. No one's ever accused me of being pro-Israel.
That one hurt you the most?
That one hurt. Okay, yeah, that one hurt me a little bit. He said, I'm Israel first. And he said, and I've heard this before, he's not the first one to say something like this. He said, if all you talk about is Israel, he says, then in a weird roundabout way, you are giving Israel more credit than they deserve. You have an outsized perception of what they're capable of or who they are. He said, so if you're banging your head against the wall, all you talk about is Israel, then do you even care about America? Maybe you care more about Israel, have more of a negative opinion of Israel to the detriment of a positive feeling towards America. That's a debate I'm eager to have. I'd be very interested in that, you know, because this is a talking point which has become very popular in a very short amount of time. So much so that I almost suspect that this is a talking point that was developed and then deployed. And I say that because I've seen Oran McIntyre from Blaze TV, Matt Walsh from Daily Wire, Tucker Carlson. They've all said exactly the same thing in interviews in the past 2-3 weeks. And they say something like this. They say, I only care about America. I don't care about Israel. My rebuttal to that is, of course, we care about America. That's the name of my show. It's America First. But if you care about America, you care about its governance.
Yeah.
The biggest problem with America is corruption. It's that foreign governments, multinational corporations are influencing our system. They're bribing the politicians. They have regulatory capture over the bureaucracy. They influence the war machine. That's why we get all these policies like free trade or the war in Iraq, which are not in America's interest. You know, these are things that benefit certain companies, certain countries. They don't benefit the actual people of the country. So, of course, if you care about America, you need to care about if Israel's influencing our foreign policy. If you cared about America, you care about our military. Should we go and fight a war in Iran? Most Americans would say no. Israel says yes. They're very clear about this. If you care about America, you need to care about, you know, that Israel is exercising a veto over our military and our foreign policy. That's just one example. So he said all that, and I delivered this rebuttal on my show, and I said, you know what? I said, let's stop the nonsense. If you want to call me out and say I'm Israel first, have me on the show. You know, everybody loves to have a position about me. They're very confident in calling me out for whatever reason, from any angle, when I'm not in the room. And that goes for Jordan Peterson, Shapiro, Tim Pool, Charlie Kirk. These are all people that have called me out over the years. called me names.
I hope you guys are enjoying the show. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps the show a lot with the algorithm. Thank you.
Lied about me. And I said, let's have a debate. Let's talk about it. You have this ideology, very mainstream, conventional, orthodox. I have this underground, heterodox, dissident view. Let's have the conversation. This is the free marketplace of ideas. It is they that adamantly have refused across the board over 10 years. So, it just becomes very frustrating. So I had a little bit of an unhinged rant on Tim Pool, a lot of swearing and, pretty aggressive. But I mean, I'm very frustrated about it over the years. So.
I wonder if in their minds, they don't want to platform you and potentially lose sponsors and revenue.
Yeah. And I think that's a big reason.
True.
I'm sure that's part of the reason why.
A lot of people are scared of that idea.
I mean, don't piss on my leg and tell me it's raining and say, oh, well, a lot of them say, well, we don't have him on because he's a jerk. He's a nasty guy. And it's like, I think I'm a polite guy. Even if you disagree with me, I'm pretty polite. And I think that if they were transparent about it, it would reveal kind of the whole game, which is, wait a second. I thought we're in a free marketplace of ideas. Now you're telling me that if you talk to a certain person, you're going to lose all your money. What does that say about the political discourse? What does that say about our politics that, from Candace Owens to Ben Shapiro? I mean, really the full spectrum, they're all dependent on platform access on the major social platforms. They're all dependent on ad revenue from big sponsors, from certain companies. And it seems that those platforms and those sponsors exercise control over what the people say, who they can talk to, what opinions they can have.
They had OnlyFans.
When you watch a show, are you getting that person's opinion? Are you getting a real opinion? Or are you getting talking points that are sort of filtered? Even if it's not, maybe not necessarily somebody says, you can't say this, you can't say that. Even if it's a quiet self-censorship where somebody says, oh, if I have this guy on, I'm going to lose my show. It's really a difference without a distinction. Because people like to say, do you really believe that so-and-so on television is getting a list of what to say and they're sort of cynically and self-consciously lying to their audience? Not necessarily. I think people like opportunities. They like to get paid. They want to have a big platform. They know there's a game, so to speak, and to win, you have to play the game. And we all know what that means. Tucker knows what that means when he lost his job at Fox.
Yeah,
Candace knows what that means when she lost her YouTube for about a month last year.
Restricted
we all know
area.
what you can say. We all, especially in this space, you're a content creator. We all know where that line is. It's sort of implied. And we all make decisions every day and all the time. Are we going to approach that line, cross that line, avoid it completely? And someone like myself, my existence is inconvenient for them because I'm somebody that says, I have no lines. I have no sponsors. I've been banned from the platforms. If they ban me, I don't care. I'll go on an alternative platform. And, so there's just sort of like this deep contradiction. You can't go out and tell your audience, I'm uncensored. I'm free speech. I'm a free marketplace of ideas. Oh, but I'm on YouTube. I can't say this. Oh, but I have a sponsor. I can't say that. Somebody like Nick Fuentes exists alongside. I hate when people say their own names. I think it's very narcissistic, but if someone like myself comes around and says, well, I'm banned on YouTube and I talk to everybody and I say whatever, it kind of makes all these people look like controlled opposition. And I think they hate that. Yeah. So that's a big part of it.
No, it's a good point. It makes you wonder who in alternative media, especially the political space, is compromised or influenced or paid off. I feel like it's a good amount of people.
I think it's everybody. I think it's all and that's not to say I'm the truest, and best or whatever, but you just have to follow the money. And people say that I have a cult-like following. Okay, guilty as charged. So do a lot of the great movies and underground artists. I mean, I have a loyal audience. They pay me to do my show. Question is, how many of the big streamers could survive just on their audience paying them? Very few in the conservative political space. Very few of them have genuine fans. You got the top guys, like no doubt a Tucker could raise money from his audience and make a good living. Candace Owens, I'm sure. But once you get into that like B and C tier, I think it becomes impossible. I don't think they make 30 grand if they're dependent on audience donations or things like that. So, a lot of them then are dependent on the hand that feeds them.
Yeah, it'd be tough for sure. And you tweeted out you're blacklisted by almost everyone in the conservative space, right?
That's
Daily
right.
Wire, Turning Point, Pierce Morgan, Lace TV, CPAC. How do you know that for sure?
They've told me I got kicked out of CPAC. I get kicked out every year. Every year that I go since 2019, they literally throw me out. And it's as simple as this. I went in maybe a year or two ago just to check. I walked in the night before it even started. And I just literally strolled in. And they've got like it's in a big convention center. So they've got the big ballrooms and then the big hall, where they'll have like they have like drinks and exhibitions and things like that. So I'm not even in like really the main ballroom. I'm in this exhibition hall. I'm strolling through. It took 5 minutes for security to clock me in this big crowded room. Mr. Fuentes, can you come with us? And then they throw me out. And it's been years. I'm not there to start a problem. I'm just walking around and, the same goes for Daily Wire. I've asked them for many years, have me on the show, debate me. None of the shows will. Not Clavin, Knowles, Walsh, Shapiro, Peterson, Candace, when she was there. None of them would do it. And then with Turning Point USA, I'm on the blacklist. They throw me out of their convention every year. My beef with Turning Point started in 2019. Turning Point chapter wanted to bring me as a speaker. Turning Point said, you can't do that. They fired, actually, it's funny, Ashley St. Clair. Everybody knows her now. Yeah. She's Elon Musk's baby mama. Years ago, she was a Turning Point ambassador.
Wow.
We took a picture at a party in 2019. Just a party. She wasn't even at the event I was at. We all just wound up in the same place. She got stripped of her ambassadorship because she was in the picture the next day. Because she hung out with me. That's like the level of blackballing I'm on in the conservative space. People don't even realize.
It's just so nuts to me because conservatives are about free speech and all this, but I hear stuff like this. That's not free speech.
No, nothing close to it. And it's the definition of cancel culture. I mean, this is something that's so telling about the conservative space. These people have railed for 10 years about censorship, cancel culture, wokeness, political correctness. They're all subtly different, but all these things are in the same vein. They participate in all of it, and they're not victims of any of it. Charlie Kirk, Ben Shapiro, name one platform they've ever been banned from, ever, for even a minute, for a day, a week, a month. Turning Point and Daily Wire have been on YouTube and TikTok and Facebook and Twitter uninterrupted for 10 years. Censorship started, hit its zenith, and then receded after Trump got censored on Twitter in 21. This whole story played out over literally 10 years. Arguably, there was no censorship around 2015. That's when it really started. And then it hit this high watermark around COVID, the pandemic, BLM, all that stuff. Now it's maybe once again at a lower point. This whole story has occurred and not one of them got banned by one platform for even a day. None of the big guys. And when you look, they all actually colluded with the platforms. Daily Wire cut a deal with Google. They went to Google back when everybody was being banned over COVID. Anybody that doubted the vaccine, the hypothesis about the spread of COVID, they were all censored. People were censored for everything, the election, BLM, Ukraine, but that was a big one. Tim Pool, Shapiro, Charlie Kirk, they effectively all cut a deal with YouTube and said, look, we won't talk about it and we'll keep our platform access. In the interim, all their competition got banned. Gavin McInnes, Alex Jones, Vince James, me, I mean, you name it. All the competition, Sam Hyde, anybody that was talking about any of those hot button issues when censorship was intense, from 2018, let's say, until 2022, all their competition got banned, and they were effectively like a state-enforced monopoly or an oligopoly. They got the pass from the conglomerate, or I should say the oligarchy of big tech social platforms. They got the pass to stay on and basically print money. Daily Wire was one of the biggest publishers on Facebook for years. Facebook has 3 billion active users. Think about the advantage of having 3 billion active users, a captive audience. You're the number 2 publisher on that platform versus being banned on everything. And what is the impact on the conversation, on your boomer relatives? People think they're getting the edgy, controversial, hot takes from the right wing. And they're getting something that's system approved, matrix approved by YouTube and basically the whole system.
Yeah. Well, things are turning around now, though. Daily Wire looks like it's struggling. What are your predictions for how they're going to end up over the next few years?
Well, I don't know if they're going to be able to make it out of it. I don't know their game plan, but I think they've lost a lot of credibility. I think that, and it has everything to do with the changing censorship atmosphere. Like I said, when you ban all your competition, it's pretty easy. You know, when you're Tim Pool, when you're Daily Wire in 2019 and 2020, that's a pretty good gig because everybody else is banned. You've got this deal. That's a huge, invaluable asset. Now that censorship is going away, Elon Musk acquired Twitter in 22, starts bringing people back. And he honestly led the pack because after he acquired Twitter, the other social platforms said they were liberalizing. And by liberalizing, I mean relieving the censorship. Instagram, Twitch, TikTok, YouTube, they all started to relax the content moderation. I think that's why Candace is now able to say what she says on YouTube. I got banned for saying that 5 years ago. And you know, my clips started to go viral on Instagram this year. They relaxed the moderation a little bit. In an environment where Daily Wire has to compete with real truth tellers, they're going to talk about the real issues. They're not competitive anymore. They're no longer the best game in town. They're not even attractive. And in particular, people start to see the hypocrisy. It's sort of the perfect storm because at the same time you've got free speech, you also have this war in Gaza. And even conservatives are starting to say this is messed up. This is a genocide. They're killing children. We shouldn't be involved in this. By that, I mean the United States. Shapiro and that whole crew, I mean, they're not only enforcing the censorship on Candace Owens because she bucked that a little bit. You know, she said, I don't like to see Palestinian children get murdered. What a novel opinion, right? You know, what a hot take. Not only does she get canceled, but, you know, Shapiro's pushing this hypocrisy where he says, you know, we hate identity politics and Israel doesn't need the United States. Well, total switch up after Gaza. Now all of a sudden he says, well, the United States has to give Israel everything they need or they're going to nuke everybody. And, you know, identity politics are terrible, but, you know, and we're all about Israel here and this and that. If you're not with Israel, you're not with America. So I think people started to see the hypocrisy, and now their credibility is an all-time low. Every single one of them over there. I think people see the jig is up. I don't know how you put that back together again. How do you repair that? You know, once that cat's out of the bag, how do you go and watch Shapiro now that you know he's a foreign agent? You know,
it's hard to come back from.
Shit.
Do you have any confidence in Trump to stand up to Israel in his term?
Wait, how do we know that?
I don't know.
Ben Shapiro is a
Honestly,
foreign
that's a
agent?
big unknown. It's sort
That's
of
just a name,
unpredictable.
right?
And
I
I
don't
would
know
say
if
that
if it's true though.
Trump has
Don't
surprised
quote
me.
me on that.
He has been more defiant against Israel than I thought he would be. I expected that he would defy them a little bit because what you have to understand about Trump is he's a deal maker. I don't think he's an ideologue. He has ideological beliefs, but fundamentally the way that he behaves in a campaign and when he's the president in government is it's all the art of the deal. And you could see it very clearly. It's all this protracted negotiation, maximalist bluffing. You know, China better not raise the tariff or else. Russia better make a deal. Iran better make a deal. There's always wiggle room. There's always, and none of these things, you know, the other day at a press conference, they said Trump always chickens out. I wouldn't say it's chickening out. I would say that the bluffing, the threatening, the big talk, it's all part of the process. He's a negotiator. If you read The Art of the Deal, it's all in the book. I mean, it's all about putting together these kind of creative solutions, bringing together different parties that may have these obstinate differences and trying to reconcile those things by changing how the table is set. Just sometimes by saying something very bold, very unexpected, like the plan to expel everybody from Gaza. I don't think Trump even wants that. I think that's meant to shake things up. To the extent that he's ideological, for 30 years, he's been against foreign intervention. He was against the Iraq War. He wanted us to withdraw from Syria. He wanted us even to withdraw from Germany and Korea. He is ideologically not an isolationist, but really something like a non-interventionist. Now the new term is a restrainer. They used to say non-interventionist, meaning we don't want a military intervention in every scenario. Now they say you're a restrainer, meaning a restrained foreign policy. We're willing to intervene, but we're going to be restrained. We're not going to take every opportunity. It's just a subtle change in the language over the years. So I think Trump, properly understood, is a restrainer because he'll use the military. He bombed Syria in 2017 and 2018. He killed Qasem Soleimani, put maximum pressure on Venezuela, brinksmanship with North Korea. But he prefers non-military solutions. And in particular, he's averse to these ground wars, averse to having a ground occupation in Iraq, in Syria, in Yemen, where we were involved with Saudi Arabia for something like a decade. And so I think going into 24, he was going to be averse to what Israel wanted, which was a full-blown war with Iran. So I predicted that he and even J.D. Vance and Tulsi Gabbard and Pete Hegseth, they would be averse to any kind of military strikes on Iran, certainly any regime change war, ground invasion, anything like that. With that being said, the tension is that he owes the Israelis big, because Miriam Adelson gave him $100 million in 24, and that came with some strings. And I'm sure there were other deals that were made. Many other Zionists gave him money. And look, let's be honest. After October 7th, many of Zionist donors, Democrats and Republicans, rallied behind Trump, some even reluctantly, when he won the primary in 2024, because they expected he would be more pro-Israel than a Democrat administration. So even these big Democrat donors like Bill Ackman, Jacob Hellberg, they given millions to Democrats in the past. After October 7th, they were Republican for that reason alone.
Wow.
So there's this tension. And of course, there's this tension inside the administration. So you've got these neocon guys like Mike Waltz, who was the national security advisor. He was literally working with Netanyahu.
Wow.
He was using a encrypted messaging app for communication with the Israeli government in cabinet meetings.
When was that?
This was in March, April, and May. He got fired earlier this month in May. National Security Advisor heads up the National Security Council. They liaise between the Pentagon, which is the DOD, the whole military, and the White House. So they, when you have these meetings in the Situation Room, the military will present the options to the president. This is the situation. This is our intelligence. These are the options. It's the National Security Advisor's job to come up with those options. That guy was Mike Waltz. He was working for Netanyahu. He got fired for that. And this isn't me saying this. This was in the Jerusalem Post. This was in the Washington Post. This is in the New York Times. This is mainstream press. And it only makes common sense. I mean, look, Mike Waltz was a congressman from Florida. Florida has one of the biggest populations in the world. It's one of the three big population centers in America: LA, New York, South Florida. As a result, all these creatures from Florida like Rubio, DeSantis, Susie Wiles, Mike Waltz, they're all very pro-Israel. Because to get elected in Florida, you need all these big pro-Israel donors. That's who makes up the big donor base in that state because of who lives there, because of who's rich there. So when Trump gets in 24, his chief of staff is Susie Wiles. She's from Florida. She ran his campaign in Florida. When she's the chief of staff, she picks all the personnel. She brings in her people from Florida. So she brings in Rubio to be Secretary of State. He's close with Miriam Adelson, who's a super Zionist donor that gave Trump $100 million. She's Israeli. Her husband is buried in Israel. She brings in Mike Waltz to be the NSA, to be the National Security Advisor. So you have this infiltration that is deep inside the government. This is my point. It's almost like Trump doesn't have full control over the House. He is the president, and people say, well, what he says goes. Well, not quite. This was the case in the first term, and this was a big problem, and I warned about this. Nobody listened. This is now a problem in the second administration. When you have bad personnel, bad chief of staff, bad secretary of state, bad national security advisor, you're going to get bad options, bad intelligence. You're going to get people that are pushing you all the time to go to war. And Trump is one of these people where a lot of the times he will go with whatever the last person he talked to said about an issue. He'll have two people fight it out in the Oval Office, and the last person that he's heard, that's who he's going with. Now, you can fight that battle for a long time, but you fight that battle every day for 4 years, and it's all neocons, and they're baked into the cake there in the Pentagon, in the National Security Council. Through attrition, eventually they're going to win over, and they're going to convince you to do things you didn't want to do. So I'm very concerned that either you're going to have the neocons inside the administration win out, neocons in the Senate. We could get really granular into this stuff, but the Republicans in the Senate are exerting pressure on Trump, on Iran. And then, of course, the Israelis, even outside the U.S. government, they have their own way of manipulating the situation. When all is said and done, if Israel provokes Iran into a direct confrontation, that forces our hand, and we're now in the middle of it, whether we like it or not. Now, the question is Israel willing to take it that far? How confident are they that Trump will go along with it? Conventional wisdom says Trump will have to go with them, but I think Netanyahu is maybe not fully confident. Maybe that's why he hasn't carried out a strike yet. So there's a lot of variables here, a lot of different people that can manipulate this, whether it's White House personnel, the Senate, Netanyahu. That's why I say I really don't know how it's going to shake out, but I'm not too confident in Trump, I will say at this point. If I were to bet right now, I would say he's not going to be able to restrain Israel.
Wow. What a statement.
Whoa.
You didn't vote for him, right?
No,
Who'd you vote for?
I didn't vote.
Oh, you skipped it this year?
I didn't vote, yeah.
But you voted for him in the past?
I did. I voted for him in 16 and 20. But, the thing is about, Republicans, conservatives, they can't take our vote for granted. A lot of people said, well, you have to vote. Well, if you don't vote for him, you're voting for Kamala. Well, the Democrat is always going to be worse than the Republican. If you're a conservative and Republicans and Democrats are running, well, the Democrat's always going to be more liberal. They're always going to be socially liberal, big government, all that stuff. It's like, so do we have to vote for Republicans every year, no matter what, forever? And when can we ever not vote for them? What does that do for the Republican Party? If they know that no matter what, we're always going to vote for them, well, when they need to make a compromise, who are they going to sell out? Are they going to sell out the people the people in the middle, the independents, the minorities, the women that they have to compete for every year? I mean, let's say you're Republican. Oh, I don't know if the women are going to vote for me this time. I don't know if the independents are going to vote for me. I know who's going to vote for me every time. The white men, the very conservative white men. I don't have to worry about them. So I don't need to appeal to them. I don't need to make concessions to them. I can even say things they don't like because I know what are they going to do? Vote for the Democrat? What are they going to do? Not vote? They have to vote. I'm going to make concessions to appeal to the moderates, the women, the minorities, maybe even people on the left, the unions. And so, maybe it was unsuccessful, but last year I said, look, if you're a very conservative, America first, nationalist, Christian, right-winger, you got to stand up and make your voice heard and said, no, you got to earn my vote too. I'll vote for you gladly. And I'm not asking for much, but you got to earn it. And I said very clearly, this is what I want to hear. I want to hear we're not going to war with Iran. I want to hear we're not going to expand H-1B visas, which is the high-skilled legal immigration. If Trump can say those two things, I said he's got my vote. But unless and until he says that, I'm not going to vote for my own people to lose jobs, because that's what's happening with H-1Bs. We're being replaced in the population, but also in the workforce. Yeah. I'm not going to vote for a war that I'm going to pay for and potentially die in. Like, I won't be the guy that voted for that. So if Trump can say we're not doing those things, I'm happy to do it. And I could look the other way on a lot of different issues, that it might not be ideal. I might be super pleased with, but he didn't say those things. And people made fun of me for even trying to get that. It's like, I'm a big advocate of people taking their own side and telling politicians you have to earn our votes.
Where do you stand with his deportations? Are you in favor of those?
I'm in favor, but they're not. I mean, there's not enough,
The flights aren't enough?
No, I mean, because they had a self-deportation flight, first of its kind, last week. They put 67 people on the flight, And look, maybe people are more moderate on this issue. 10 million illegal immigrants came in 4 years under Biden. That's insane. We at least got to get those people out of the country. I mean, that's bigger than the size of the population of New York City. And these are economic migrants. These are refugees from Venezuela, from El Salvador, from India, we don't even know where they're from in many cases. Countries need borders. We can't have these people pouring in.
Indians.
This is the bare minimum. And you see them panhandling in the streets. They rob Walgreens and then sell chocolate bars on the, in the busy intersections, on the busy thoroughfares. Many of them are part of violent gangs. They're drug dealers. So, if you're deporting 500 people per day, I mean, that's great. And they could take pictures of it and give people this impression that there's a lot of activity here. 500 people per day, that adds up to about 900,000 to 1.2 million in 4 years. 10 million came in 4 years. In the next 4 years, we get 1 million out of the country, roughly speaking. That's not good enough. It needs to be way more than that. So I'm not happy with it.
What about people that have been here prior to that explosion? Like people that have been here 10, 20, 30 years?
In principle, I think they should still leave. But I think there's more you know, I'm realistic also. There's probably 40 million illegal immigrants here. Are we going to get 40 million? We don't know, though. You know, I mean, they've been saying 13 million for literally 25 years. Okay.
shit.
Like, we have millions of illegals come in every single year, and the number never changes. It's 11, 13 million. There was a study that came out in 2016. It said there were 23 million. Okay.
Whoa.
So maybe it's 30, maybe it's 40. We don't know. Are we going to get 30 and 40 million
Maybe it's
people out of the
less. Who
country?
knows?
I'm realistic. Probably not. I don't expect that out of Trump. Can we get 1 million illegals out per year? I think that's a good place to start. Trump has secured the border to his credit. I'll give credit where it's due. You know, the illegal apprehensions are down. They're almost nothing every month, which is miraculous. But we need a border wall, and we need about 1 million deportations per year. And to me, that would be appropriate.
You think they're going to release the Epstein stuff soon?
Yeah.
I don't think it even
Yeah, I highly
exists.
doubt.
Really?
I think it's been destroyed.
Wow.
Yeah.
Or manipulated.
You know, and they
The
promised they
Epstein,
were going to release those
no,
files.
the Epstein files.
And they did this
They're
big
done.
photo op where they had those binders, Jack Posobiec and Scott Pressler and all those guys. They did this big social media summit. They went to the White House. They made a big show of it. And the binders contained documents that had already been declassified. So, you know, it's really funny. During the election, they asked Trump, will you release the Epstein files?
Yeah.
And he faltered on that. They did this one interview. It was very rapid fire. They said, will you declassify JFK? Yes. 9/11? Yes. Epstein? Yes. Well, and it was literally that obvious. And I'm like, are people watching this? Like, is that not the cat that ate the canary? Like, you know, 9/11, absolutely. Well, but, and he said specifically on Epstein, he said, well, some people might be in there that are innocent. Okay, so who are we talking about there? Who might be in there that's innocent? I wonder who was on those flight logs.
Oh, shit.
So I think they destroyed it. I think if there was any evidence, it doesn't exist anymore. Who knows what jurisdiction it's in? Does the FBI have it? Does New York have it? I mean, who even knows at this point? And they've been saying they're going to put this stuff out there. I think that's the one thing they're not going to touch because it's just too proximate. They'll do JFK to an extent because it was 60 years ago. Maybe they'll do 9/11 to an extent. It was 25 years ago. Epstein killed himself in Trump's first term, and he implicated many people that are still alive.
Right.
The people implicated in JFK are all dead. And many of the people implicated in 9/11 are dead. Not all of them, but a lot of them are. And still, it's a quarter of a century ago at this point. But the Epstein files, I mean, that implicates people that are alive now and kind of lays bare the whole institutional corruption. So I don't think they're ever going to put that stuff out there.
I think there's something weird with that one. Just look at the body language of Dan and Cash on that interview. It's like really concerning to me.
Well, and the switch up is incredible. I mean, they built their media people. They built a media career saying, we're going to blow up the FBI, you know, metaphorically speaking, of course. We're going to fire everybody. We're going to get everybody out of the J. Edgar Hoover building. We're going to release those Epstein files. And then they look like they're being held at gunpoint. It's almost like they're sweating, saying, no, he definitely killed himself. He definitely killed himself, and everyone's going to see that. I don't know. I don't trust that, even for a second.
It makes you really think who's pulling the strings.
Well, and it makes you think, how possible is it to even achieve reform? You elect Trump, you appoint these ostensible outsiders like Kash Patel, who barely got through confirmation. These are supposed to be, you know, here we go. These are the good guys. This is the A-team. This is the golden era. Kash Patel and Dan Bongino from Fox News. I mean, it's like, why don't you send in like Mark Levin while you're at it? Why don't you send in like, you know, Michael Savage and Alex Jones or something? You know, so it's not, in other words, in his first term, you had Bill Barr. Okay, Bill Barr worked for George Bush. I don't have too much confidence in him. But Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, if they go in there and say, yeah, no, he definitely killed himself, it makes you wonder about the deep state. How deep does it go? You know, because there's this idea that maybe someone gets in and they want to shake things up, but then the proverbial men in suits come in and they put their hand on your shoulder and say, yeah, this is how it really works.
Yeah.
And
You
it's
need
kind
to
of
chill
terrifying.
out.
What's that conversation look like? That even these patriots, warriors, really, I mean, Kash Patel and Bongino, I mean, think they're okay guys. I'm sure they came in like cowboys thinking we have all these plans. We're going to change everything. What did that conversation look like? Then now
The
they're
Men in
sitting there
Black?
saying,
Oh,
no,
shit,
he killed
yeah.
himself.
And if they have that pull over the U.S., they pretty much have that over the entire world at that point.
The U.S. is the empire that runs the world. So if they control our government, Think about the extent of that control. It's pretty scary.
God, it's super scary. Do you think it's been going on for a while, or you think it's kind of recent?
I think it's been going on for a long time. I would say at least 50, 60 years. I mean, this all goes back to World War II. There's a World War II, post-World War II order. That's where all these intelligence agencies came from. And, you know, you could say maybe there was this period between, let's say, 48 and 63 when this was being contested. You know, Dwight Eisenhower said, beware the military-industrial complex. And JFK tried to make reform at the CIA. And the government wasn't absolutely pro-Israel. And so you could see there was maybe a time when there was a battle happening for American sovereignty. But let's say that battle ended sometime around the mid-60s. If I were to pinpoint it, I would say that's when we really lost control over the country.
Now these intelligence agencies have so much power. Now they're working with universities. Harvard's getting exposed right now. I'm sure you've seen that.
Right.
That stuff's crazy.
Well, I mean, in the case of Harvard, I actually am in support of Harvard.
Really?
I am.
I gotta
yeah.
hear this.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. The reason they're coming after Harvard is because that was the hotspot for all these anti-Israel protests in 2023. That's where all this started. Nobody had a problem with Harvard in the first term. Nobody had a problem with Harvard up until October 7th. What happened after October 7th is a bunch of these students for justice in Palestine, you know, one of these pro-Palestine groups, they put out an open letter, and they said that October 7th was basically, this is them, not me, because I don't think October 7th was justified, but this is what a bunch of left-wing students published. They said that October 7th was effectively justified because this was the long-awaited comeuppance for the Israelis who were treating Gaza like a concentration camp. So they said that Israel was to blame for October 7th. This is very controversial. Now, Bill Ackman, who is a billionaire hedge fund manager, and he's tight with the guy that runs BlackRock, Larry Fink, who's also a Zionist, pro-Israel. BlackRock is the biggest asset manager in the world, trillions of dollars under management. And Bill Ackman is a close friend of his. He's on Wall Street as well with a major hedge fund. Bill Ackman's an alumni of Harvard. Bill Ackman's a lifelong Democrat donor, lifelong liberal. After that letter went out, and there were some pro-Palestine protests on the Harvard campus, Bill Ackman marshaled all of his resources to destroy Harvard. He hired a nonprofit to send these billboard trucks, digital billboard trucks, to the houses of the protesters with their faces on the billboard truck and their names saying, you're an anti-Semite, you're a Nazi, you hate Israel. They paid. It was through a conservative nonprofit to have these billboard trucks circle the campus at Harvard, go to the houses of the protesters. Bill Ackman said that he sent a list of the names of the protesters to Larry Fink to get those people blacklisted from Wall Street so they couldn't have jobs. Bill Ackman went to the alumni network and said, we are going to stop giving Harvard any money. The very, I mean, he's a billionaire. The very rich alumni said, we're not giving Harvard any money because they're anti-Semitic, because they supported these protests, because they won't crack down on the Palestinians. They had their allies in Congress, like Elise Stefanik, who's super Zionist in the pocket of Israel. They had their allies like her and others call a congressional subcommittee to interrogate the presidents of Columbia, University of Pennsylvania, and Harvard, because that's where they had all these protests. And they had these big, huge televised hearings where they said, you're an anti-Semite. If you allow the students to say from the river to the sea, that's a call for genocide. You're tolerating that. And there was this sustained high-pressure campaign from media, from the nonprofit world, from Congress, from the finance world, from the alumni network, to go after the faculty at Harvard. And when all was said and done, the president of University of Pennsylvania fired, president of Columbia fired, president of Harvard fired. In almost every case, they were replaced by allies of the state of Israel. At the University of Pennsylvania, the chairman of the board resigned, was replaced by the chair of the North American Federation. That's replaced the chair of UPenn. At Harvard, they replaced Claudine Gay with a doctor named Alan Garber, who said, you know, we're against DEI, but we're also very against anti-Semitism and all the rest of it. So the way that I see it playing out right now in the Trump administration is this is an evolution of those tactics from 2023 and 2024. And by the way, this isn't a conspiracy theory either. The Heritage Foundation is one of the biggest, most influential conservative nonprofits.
Yeah.
Everybody in politics, right-wing politics, knows Heritage. Socially conservative, fiscally conservative. They promulgated a project last year called Project Esther. Project Esther is like name. It's called Project Esther. You can look it up. It's on their website. It's not a conspiracy theory. Project Esther says they are going to get a Republican government in power. They're going to wait for a Republican to become the president, for Republicans to control the House and the Senate. Once they do, there will be a public-private partnership, meaning government with the private sector, to label anybody that has protested Israel, anybody that supported Palestine, any campus groups, activists. We're going to label all of them as terrorists.
Whoa.
We're going to say they're a Hamas support network. That's the acronym they came up with, an HSN. If you're pro-Palestine, if you're an activist protesting, writing essays, you're on the campus, you're a Hamas support network. Hamas are terrorists. You're a terrorist. They said, and once we get our favorable Republican government, we're going to use immigration law, national security laws like terrorist laws. We're going to use education laws, basically everything that's on the books to go after these people, deport them, surveil them, put them in prison, financially sanction them, ostracize them, and this is a quote, ostracize them from society, basically expel them, cancel them from social life. Now that President Trump is in office with a Republican majority in the House and the Senate, with Zionists at HHS, at the Department of Education, at DHS.
Wait, chat, is this true?
At the State Department, Zionists in the White
If
House.
the government gets a
They're
hold of a
executing
Republican
that project
president,
to a letter. The New York Times
they're just going to label anyone who speaks against Israel
50% of the
a
policies
terrorist.
prescribed in Project Esther. So when Trump goes after Harvard and UPenn and Brown and Columbia and Cornell and Yale and says, we're coming after your endowments, your loans and federal grants, we're coming after tax-exempt status, we're coming after your international students, this is a war on the elite schools, the highly selective schools, the Ivy Leagues, so that they will stop the pro-Palestine protests and so that they will implement a pro-Israel curriculum in their Middle East Studies department.
Wow.
And there's two purposes for this. It's pretty transparent. One, if the United States is giving Israel billions of dollars to annihilate the civilian population, if the United States is maybe going to war with Iran, where would you expect to see a popular grassroots protest against that stuff? College campuses. So when you shut down the college campuses, you're clearing the way for the United States to support these wars without any opposition. Billions of dollars in missiles and maybe a ground war, regime change war in Iran. And all the protests have been silenced preemptively. That's number one. Number two, Harvard, UPenn, Columbia, all these elite schools. The students that graduate from those schools go on to work for the top law firms, the top hedge funds. They work on Wall Street in the Foreign Service and the State Department. If the Middle East Studies departments at these schools are teaching that Israel is genociding Palestine, guess who's running the State Department in a generation? People that aren't very sympathetic to Israel. Same thing with Wall Street. Same thing with every other elite institution. I mean, these schools are elite-making institutions. So they want to make sure the curriculum is pro-Israel so that the elites are pro-Israel, so that every generation of students that goes into the highest levels of society, they see it exactly one way. So Trump's war on the universities, I don't support this at all. I think it's an attack on civil society. And I think it's very clearly motivated by trying to pave the way for, once again, this foreign influence. I think it's evil.
Yeah, they're playing chess out here. I did not know all that was going on behind the scenes.
And they count on that because they portray it like, oh, this is based. They say, this is the latest narrative. Trump bans the international students. That's meant to bankrupt Harvard. That's the goal, because international students pay full boat. They pay 60 to 80 grand per year. Harvard it's 20% of their student body. That's a lot of money. So if Trump takes their international students, that's like, this is deal making. You don't want to take our pro-Israel curriculum? Well, we'll bankrupt you. Now you have to take the curriculum. But the way it's being portrayed by conservatives is, oh, this is great because now Americans can go to Harvard. Okay, but that's not the intention. And I think when all is said and done, the international students will come back to Harvard. You know, Trump said we want more international students and we want them to stay. We want to give them green cards. So the international students they're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
This is just using them as a bludgeon against Harvard. And they're getting conservatives to support it intentionally by branding it as some kind of based, you know, pro-worker, anti-immigration policy, when really that's not what it is.
Do you think they should remove history class from public education systems?
No, I think they should keep it, but
Really?
it should be patriotic. You know, we should learn history, but, you know, the problem is who's going to be writing the textbooks?
Because right now what they're teaching is a lot of BS.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's slavery, it's Holocaust, I mean, that's, I feel like that's all you learn is just like trauma dumping from non-white groups. It's like, you know, first white people enslaved black people, then they did the Holocaust, then they were racist, then Trump got elected and was racist against Mexicans. Like, that's your world history. You ask these people about like, hey, who's Henry Clay? You know, like who's this and that? They don't know what's going on. So we just need something that's patriotic.
Got to rewrite the history books.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a movement working on that right now or no?
I think there are some conservatives pushing on that. But it's, you know, it's tough because you got to go through, I mean, in many of these states, the state exercises control over what's taught. And in many states is mandated that you teach things like the Holocaust and slavery and all this, you know, this woke stuff. So,
well, they got rid of the Department of Education at least, right? Did that go through yet?
No, it's still there.
Oh, it's still pending. Damn. Are you in favor of that one?
No, I think that I think we should get rid of these things and then start new things, but make them ours. You know, so like the Department of Education, all these federal departments and agencies, they all suffer from this regulatory capture, which is to say that over time, certain business interests are going to take over the bureaucracy that's supposed to regulate them. What's more, you have this class of bureaucrats, they become career civil servants. They live in D.C., whether it's Trump or Obama, they remain in their position, and they then tend to develop a distinct interest. They're never going to want their department to be shrunk because then they're going to get fired. So these people are always in favor of the department. They become almost distinct from the rest of the American people because they're in kind of a different world. The only way to get rid of that is to just fire all these people, destroy the departments and agencies, salt the earth where they were, and start new ones. And start new ones with a new purpose, with new personnel, with a new mission statement. And so get rid of the Department of Education, start a new Department of Education. Make it patriotic. You know, what's actually the goal? I think we should have a form of national education, but what's the goal of education? In a country like China or Russia, contrary to what people say, they're teaching the people in their country to have pride in their country. Is that such a bad thing? People say, oh, that's totalitarian, that's dictatorship. Is it a dictatorship to be proud of who you are in your country, to be loyal to your country? I think that's an asset, especially in the age of deep penetration by foreign intelligence. It's an asset that in Russia and in China, they're loyal to their country. They love their country. They celebrate their country. They don't just see the bad, they see the good in their country as well. They celebrate it, and maybe even they see the good in the bad. Like in Russia, the legacy of Stalin's very controversial. Obviously, he killed millions of people and was evil. But they also say, what did Stalin do for Russia? Gave Russia a nuclear arsenal. Made Russia the biggest it had ever been. Dragged Russia into the 21st century, or the 20th century at that time, with industrialization. And it was brutal, and a lot of people died. But this man single-handedly dragged them into the industrial age, which was a totally agrarian, you know, society that had never known liberalism. So people said, well, he didn't do industrialization right. You know, well, I mean, it's hardly any different than trying to bring democracy to Iraq. You know, how do you bring liberalism to Russia? They have no experience with it. So, in other words, if a country like Russia can see the good in Stalin, see that he fought the great patriotic war and defended Moscow from the Nazis, why can't Germany have a narrative like that about Hitler? Why can't the United States have a narrative like that about our country? We never even had a mass murdering, genocidal dictator. Why are we ashamed of ourselves? Why are we teaching ourselves this stuff? So I think that we should have a patriotic education. That's the only way to have national strength in the next century.
Yeah, it makes you wonder because they villainize these countries and they brainwash us growing up. How many of them are actually evil people over there, you know?
It's true. I mean, and the way I view it, look, when you are in those positions, everyone's going to be evil. When you're in the position of being the most powerful man in the world, which Stalin was, which Xi Jinping is now, you could say arguably, whether you act or don't act, people are dying. And especially in a period like the early 20th century, when you have the mechanization of warfare, industrialization, you have a truly global conflict. People like to say, well, you know, so-and-so is this heinous, evil dictator. And don't get me wrong. I mean, were some of the things they did evil? Absolutely. But you have to always judge it in the context. People want to talk about concentration camps and this and that. Every country had camps. The United States had camps. We had them here. We had them there. We had them in Germany. We had them in the United States. Russia had camps. Germany had camps. You want to talk about killing civilians? How about the bombing of Dresden? How about the firebombing of Tokyo? How about the atomic bomb? You know, people like to pick and choose. They like to say, well, you know, and obviously the elephant in the room is the Holocaust. And, you know, to the extent that what they say about it is true, that it was a systemic extermination, that gas chambers were involved, that would be uniquely evil if that occurred. But what about the gulags? That wasn't evil. What about the of China by Japan? That wasn't evil. What about the nuclear bomb? What about all these other things? And it's not to minimize the plight of one people, but it is to say, hey, look around. There's bombs dropping everywhere, people being incinerated and thrown into camps everywhere. And so we just have to have a morality that is not completely like, well, one person was the devil incarnate and the boogeyman, and everybody else was fine. Winston Churchill and Stalin and the good guys won. Everything else was fine. I don't think it's that simple.
I wonder how they teach it in Germany if you're a student over there.
Oh, well, I mean, they teach it like it's worse than here.
Oh, really? Oh, so they shame them over there too?
Oh, yeah. It's illegal to say anything positive about Hitler or to have a swastika, anything like that. It's like a police state. It's the basis of their citizenship. It's in their constitution. You can't be a citizen of Germany if you don't support Israel.
Really? I did not know that. Holy crap. They banned the swastika over there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they basically reconstituted their entire country out of shame over the Holocaust to say, because Germany did the Holocaust, now the state of Germany is dedicated. The raison d'etre, the reason that they exist is to support Israel and the continuation of the people.
Holy
So it's like you get thrown in jail if you deny the Holocaust, make fun of the Holocaust, throw up a Hail Hitler. If you do anything like that, you get put in jail. It's like more illegal there than anywhere else.
Damn. Is that when you started getting shadow banned and banned, when you started talking about the Holocaust?
Even earlier, I started to get blacklisted just talking about foreign aid to Israel.
Wow.
I started asking questions.
When you're the first one to break a story like that, I'm sure.
I was.
You're like a martyr, right?
I sort of, yeah. I mean, it was back in 2017. I was getting my career started. I was 18. Okay, I was a freshman in college, and I started to meet some people from Daily Wire, actually. Elliot Hamilton, who was a writer there, Cassie Dillon, who now goes by Cassie Akiva. She converted. But I knew these people in Boston, and I was a normie Trump supporter. You know, I voted for Trump. I was a big Trump guy. And I just started to look, I just started to notice and pay attention to these things, just like basic common sense contradictions. I said, how is it America first to give $3.8 billion per year to Israel? They're the number one recipient of foreign aid. They have been for 50 years. They're not the poorest country. They're not the most in need. They're not our most strategically necessary ally. Why do we give them all this money? I mean, it doesn't even make any sense. And they flipped that I even asked that. That's how different it was in 17. Now people say, oh, who cares if you say that? In 17, I had my life ruined over this. They told me, at first it was a joke. They said, oh, very funny, Nick, but, you really shouldn't ask that. And I'd say, well, why not? I mean, I thought it's a free marketplace of ideas, And they'd say, no, but really, the way you're asking that is it's anti-Semitic, they said. So I said, if you want to talk about that, we can tell you how you're allowed to talk about that. But the way you're saying it is becoming anti-Semitic. And I kept pushing. I said, well, this doesn't add up. We fought in Iraq. We give these people all this money. AIPAC gives them all this money. This is BS. This is not America first, not what we voted for.
Blasphemy.
And you're willing to say America first over China and Russia and the European Union and Japan, but not Israel? Why not? And then they said, okay, we're never talking to you again. Literally.
Whoa. Hold on.
You know, Cassie
I'll
Dillon,
post-
who she was a good friend of mine. She texted me and
Freelance.
said,
Holy.
we're not
Okay, I'll
friends
post this
anymore. We're
later.
not part of the same movement.
See you
Never
guys.
talk to me again.